You know, it says I'm not connected and I am. So maybe it's a good thing.
You should have I don't think it's 2009. Oh, we're gonna forget this one. And, you know, if they want to repeal it, that's fine.
Has Jack called?
That's all they are, you know.
So I'm trying to Jack
Bring it up.
texting me that he's gonna get an incorrect address.
Okay.
And so that would be an intellectual feast, if nothing else.
And who else are we missing?
Let's see. Oh,
This,
yeah.
but, I mean, all of this.
Right, right. Well, congratulations.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, just let me know when.
I will, thanks. I'm sending the link again. We can go ahead and get started and I'll just keep texting you if you wanna move on, so we have quorum.
We have a quorum.
So feel free to start.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. The date of today is June 21st, 2021. We've called the meeting to order. I hope everyone has had a chance to look at the agenda and make note of number 5 under public hearings. So it has been withdrawn, or is it going to be reviewed?
It's been withdrawn, so
It's been withdrawn, okay. So then also, I'm hoping everyone had a second to read the minutes, and if there's any corrections or additions that you might want to add. There was one thing where there were question marks, like we're not sure who seconded
Oh, no.
one of the motions.
Which case was that?
Let me look, I saw it, they kind of figured out who it might be, I believe. It was under case number 620, they think Lance was the one that made the motion.
We corrected that this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, we found that as well, so, the updated minutes online reflect change.
Okay. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add? And we're waiting on who? I see a 601 number.
I believe that's Jack.
Hello,
Is that you, Jack?
Could you be sure to speak into your microphone? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay, is that Jack?
Hey, Diane, it's Jack.
Well, we're terribly envious.
Well, I can't make the video connection work, so you will be spared seeing the scenery.
Well, thank you for that. We are just now reviewing the minutes, and I don't know if you've had a second to download them or if there's anything you might want to add or correct to the minutes.
No, thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, Joel, and a second?
Second.
Okay.
Blair.
Blair has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes have now been approved. And Kate, I guess she will go ahead with the,
That's not the first case. I'm sorry?
okay, so the minutes have been approved, and we will move on to the administrative approvals, which
Right, those items have already.
Those items have already been
Those are
approved.
informative for you guys to read if everyone had a chance to look them
Okay.
over.
So we'll move now to case number 626.
Well, you guys need to approve the consent agenda, that one item.
Oh, I see, wait a minute.
I need to recuse myself from item 627 and 626.
All right, 627 and 26. The consent agenda, 627, is requested by Bill and Carolyn Simmons for a change in the previously approved COA at 907 Lincoln Avenue.
So unless any commissioners had a, issue with the staff report or recommendation, we'll just go ahead and approve that as consent without hearing the case.
Do I have a motion as such?
So moved.
Okay, motion made
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, anyone? Then 627 has been approved, Kate. We'll move to 626.
I've gotta be recused too.
You have to recuse on that one, Lance. Lance is recusing.
We have one, I think Virginia is too.
Yeah, both of you guys are recusing for this one. Yep.
This is case 626. It's requested by Carter Edmondson to demolish the existing building and build a new building at 1410 Madison Avenue. So Kate,
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen so that you all can see the plans. Okay, so the applicant requests approval to demolish the existing house and build a new building that will have a one-story front, will step up to two-story. You'll recall that the potential demolition of this house was reviewed on a complimentary basis at the February meeting of this commission. The minutes from that meeting were attached to your report. The existing house, got some photos of it up on the screen, is described in the Historic Resource Inventory Survey as a one-story, three-bay brick veneer bungalow with Craftsman influence, built circa 1925, and altered with a 2 1/2 story rear addition in circa 1995. So as you guys can see, it has sort of like a camelback addition at the rear, which was built prior to the establishment of local regulation for the city's historic buildings. The first thing that you'll need to do is consider and vote on the demolition of the existing building. And if that's approved, that decision will be contingent on approved plans for the new construction on the lot. Considering the demolition of a landmark or resource within a residentially zoned district, the commission must consider the following. The commission shall consider the individual, architectural, cultural, and/or historical significance of the resource. The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to the architectural character of the district. The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to neighboring property values. The commission shall consider the difficulty or impossibility to reproducing such a resource because of its texture, design, material, or detail. So you guys will discuss those criteria and the potential demolition of the house and vote, and then you'll move on to, if that vote is in favor of demolition, the plans for new construction. The plans for new construction, you can see a site plan here, and then I'll move on to the elevations. Here's the front elevation. The applicant proposes a new residence with a front one-story portion that steps up to a two-story building at the rear, so sort of similar in idea to what's there now, although it is shorter. The front of the new cottage will be slightly taller than the existing cottage, and the applicant has included a study showing the house compared to its direct neighbors. The house features front and rear porches comprised of a painted brick veneer and a horizontal hardy siding, aluminum clad simulated divided light windows, asphalt shingle roofing, and a brick chimney. The building's oriented appropriately and also appears to be appropriately scaled, with the taller portion of the house set back from the street. Let's see. While the guidelines recommend against painted historic masonry, which we've considered several times recently, the commission has consistently approved painted brick for new construction, which this building would be. And staff recommends approval of the new design should the commission find the demolition of the existing structure appropriate. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Jonathan Maddox is on the line presenting on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, I'm at a disadvantage because I cannot get online
Okay.
Here.
to look at this.
Well, I'm happy to show anything you'd like up on the screen as well. I can take you guys through the elevations.
Kate, I would appreciate if we could go to that rendering view that I shared with you.
Oh, sure.
I think it's most, keep going, the one that keep going back.
Yep.
I feel like it shows how the scale of the 1 and 2 story relate to each other better than some of the other flatter images.
Okay,
Are we
so,
discussing the demolition or the new design right now? We're discussing demolition.
Discuss the demolition first.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Kate, I have a question.
Sure.
Have you heard from any of the neighbors? I know when you see the D sign in the yard, it can make people panic. Have you heard anything from any neighbors?
We have not received any phone calls or correspondence related to the demolition or the new plan. I believe Jonathan, he sent me an email earlier this afternoon that some neighbors support the plan. Jonathan, if you want to jump in, but we haven't received anything formal.
Yes, we specifically heard from Murray Avent, who has 2 properties that adjoin on the west side. He
Murray Avent.
relayed to us that he has spoken to the Tans and to the Toshas, who live across the street, and both of them were in support as well, but we haven't had any direct communications with them.
Hey, Jonathan, is it possible to speak more loudly? You sound a little bit like the Charlie Brown teacher. We're having trouble.
Sorry, is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need to repeat what I said?
Yes,
Please.
please.
No? Okay. I was saying that we talked specifically to Murray Avent, who has the 2 properties that adjoin on the west side, the square side, and he relayed to us that he'd had conversations with the Tans and the Toshas, who live directly across the street from this. We haven't spoken to them directly, but he reports that they are all in favor of what we're doing and support it.
And in passing, I've spoken to 2 of those 3 who were very much in favor of it being demolished.
Okay. And we also haven't heard anything from the other side either.
The other 3 adjoining properties are all investment properties, so they're not owner-occupied like the 3 that I just mentioned.
If possible, I would like to open up a discussion about the possibility of not demolishing the original structure that was built in 1925. I have an interest in that possibility. I don't know if anybody else does.
I do.
Okay. I don't know. I remember from the February meeting that the owners were not interested in that, but I would like to promote that idea if it's possible. I don't really see the need to necessarily tear it down. I'm wondering if there's a possibility of saving the original structure and then adding on as they would like to accommodate what they need today.
Jonathan, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I guess I can just simply say that it is not really the desire of this owner, this potential owner, to have that as their front of their house. Considering, its location and its perceived value, they're looking for a different finished home than what one could achieve by rehabbing that front part.
Did they just purchase this home, or have they owned it for a while?
The purchase is not yet complete. They would not want to purchase this property if it were not possible to build the house that they desire. So this is a contingent purchase depending on tonight's meeting.
Is the existing structure in halfway decent shape, or does it present any issues other than the owners wishing for something a little different?
I think you can just tell by the character of the exterior that the house hasn't really been maintained incredibly well. It would need a lot of work, as all those houses do. But it had a lot of changes to it when this large addition was put on the back of it years ago.
Are the bones still good? Jonathan?
They're okay, yeah.
Would we be talking about a strict preservation or a modification of what's there in keeping with what they've designed, or is it strictly same height ceilings? What height ceilings is the original house got, Jonathan?
8,
Yeah.
and we'd be looking at,
I thought they were really
taller ceilings, obviously, in a new construction.
I'm just trying to play maybe a little devil's advocate.
Yeah,
here,
sure.
'cause that's the next, if you were to say you've got to save the front house, probably the next question is gonna be how severe a modification of that existing house would be feasible or allowable, desirable.
Yeah.
Are the other houses on the street next to that house, are they also the 1920s craftsman style?
Many of them are on that side of the street. I think the one next door to it appears to have a almost identical front elevation, except it has a different shape of front porch.
What section is an add-on, the back section?
Yes, everything you see above the bridge line of the little cottage. It's a very large addition. It's a good bit taller than the existing house in the front. And because, really the view that you zoomed in on, which I think shows what we're looking at, really is not the one that most people would associate with this house, because it's a one-way street. And you really come at it from the other direction. And from that other direction, which is the orientation of that rendering we popped up for a second, you see that addition much more prominently than you do in this view.
Yeah, the second-story windows of the addition don't look at all like they would go with that house.
No.
It's an interesting addition.
Is there,
When the addition was made, the rear addition, was the front of the house modified in any way?
I don't believe so.
so then we're basically looking at what the house looked like when it was built in 1925?
To my knowledge.
Okay. And it looks, I can't tell because I haven't done a close inspection, but it looks like the foundation's in pretty good shape. I know I'm putting you on the spot, Jonathan.
Yeah, what I was asked by my client was to give them the house that they would desire on that property. So that's really where my focus has been. This was a non-contributing structure. There had been a previous conversation with the current owner about demolishing it, so we started from that basis.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys did, to be fair, you did discuss the possibility of retaining the existing cottage at that review.
Actually, I tried to 1 or 2 times, but there was a bad connection at in the February meeting, and I just finally gave up.
Sure.
So,
Wait, I can't really hear your comments. I don't know if you're near a microphone.
I'm sorry, my mic was off. I just mentioned that the commission did discuss potentially retaining the cottage at that complimentary review, which, as we know, there's no decision made at a complimentary review, but it did come up.
yeah. Is there a way?
For what it's worth, I think when we had that discussion a couple months ago, at camp, I hear what you're saying, that you weren't we weren't able to hear you clearly.
Mm-hmm.
There was really not much conversation about, we certainly talked about trying to preserve the original structure, or even in the rebuild, to rebuild something that reflected accurately on the original facade. But we sort of spoke in a positive way about the demolition, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if you look at the other cottages that are of the same era along that street, I'm just wondering if you were able to preserve this front of this house. It would seem to be much more in keeping with what's already there, or in essence, preserving the history of what's already there.
Well, in keeping with what's already there, if you're only looking at the houses directly to the left of it. If you look to the right of it, or you look across the street with it, I would say it wouldn't be in keeping with the houses that are around it.
Right.
They're all larger scale. As the closer you get to the square, the larger they are. And this house sort of is the bridge between, well, maybe it really isn't the bridge as it is, because it's as large as everything else, maybe larger than some that's there. But it is the line where things on one side are one scale and things on the other side are another scale, which I know we're not really discussing the new design yet, but we thought a lot about that and how we approached what would go back in its place to try to be something that was in the middle of those things and neither diminutive to the larger houses or overpowering to the smaller. But that's for the next conversation, I guess.
Jonathan, we still are having difficulty understanding some of the things you're saying, not because we don't understand, but because we can't hear clearly.
I'll try to speak louder.
Would you guys like me to read the demolition criteria again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would that help?
Yeah.
Maybe one at a time and you can discuss. The commission shall consider the individual architectural, cultural, and/or historical significance of the resource.
Well, the house has been modified. It looks considerably modified,
But not the original structure.
not the original.
But the addition is certainly a significant modification.
So the addition starts at the ridge of the original cottage. So you're only looking at the front half of the original structure still being there, you know, as it were, perhaps.
Yep.
The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to the architectural character of the district.
How many 1925 little cottages do we have in that area, on that street, do you think?
I didn't count, but I mean, the property next door is identical, and several of the buildings on the street are from that era, but as Jonathan mentioned, when you go west from that side of the street, they do start to get larger in scale, and some are newer.
It was just difficult for us to hear Jonathan at that point.
Right, sure.
But isn't there a row of about 3 or 4 of them in a row that are 1925 era bungalows still?
Yeah, that's correct. There's the property right next door. There's the property that was considered maybe 6 months ago that we denied the ability to paint. It's a similar bungalow. So there are several in the area.
Okay.
And all of the others, if I'm correct, are all considered contributors, where this one in the survey from even 20 years ago was considered non-contributing.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's a good question, Kate. Can you imagine why a 1925 bungalow was not considered a contributing structure?
Sure, likely because of the huge addition at the rear, and also the windows have been swapped out. It's been painted. There is a loss of historic integrity there, for sure.
Okay.
Although the form is still fairly intact, the form of the house.
It's not the national roots either, obviously.
The commission shall consider the importance or contribution of the resource to neighboring property values. That's always a difficult one, because we can't really know.
It doesn't really have where I would consider it valuable property-wise.
The commission shall consider the difficulty or impossibility to reproducing such a resource because of its texture, design, material, or detail.
No. It doesn't look like anything would be difficult. Mr. Little?
Well, so to clarify, I understand it's got, did Jonathan say it does not have the original bricks? Or it
he
was
was talking
bricked
about
in
the
a
roof.
later, maybe I didn't hear right.
Jonathan, were you talking about the roof earlier? Do you want to?
I said roof.
Okay, can you repeat your comment?
My asthma kind of gets my voice all cranky by the afternoon. Yes, I said that the roof is not original, as well as the windows that we spoke about, and obviously modifications because of the addition.
Yeah, he was pointing out that several of the elements have been altered. Roof, windows, etc.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all of the criteria.
So it is not contributing. It has a huge addition to it, and not all of the original items on the cottage are there or have been altered. Is that correct? Okay. Do we have any other comments on this? No?
Well, I mean, obviously the back of it needs to go, right? I
The
mean,
back needs to go.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
it's a no-brainer, so assuming that you can bring it back to just that original cottage, what happens then if, for somebody that wants to build up, well, basically what he's provided us plans for?
Jonathan, do you know what the square footage of the original structure is?
The original structure, I believe, is around 1,000 square feet. Kate, is that mentioned in the report by any chance?
It's not. But I've been over there recently, and that reads correct to me.
Is there a way that we can look at the existing home and then the proposed home next to each other?
I can scroll between them for you.
Okay,
That would probably help.
yeah,
Okay.
Can you give us,
So here's the existing house.
yeah.
can you give us a front elevation of the existing house?
Yeah, we've got some trees, but here's,
I don't know if that's,
yeah, we could put them side by side on the overhead. It's right here.
What's the size of the lot?
It must be fairly deep.
It has to be.
it's very deep.
It is around a quarter acre, I believe, Ms. Scruggs. I'm not certain.
Just scroll out a little. Thanks, a little more. We're trying to get the elevation in the photo in the frame.
That's good,
That's
thank you.
very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you. And Jack, you still don't have video, do you?
I do not, no. I do not. I remember the original, what it looks like right now.
And what is the square footage of the proposed new home?
It's 2,500 feet on the ground floor, and it's about 3,500 square feet total.
What's the total?
35.
3,500.
Okay, thank you.
What's the square footage of that front one-story section, Jonathan?
I believe it's 1,000 square feet, although, and I'm not certain of the existing total of the whole house that's there now.
So the footprint of the new and the footprint of the old are similar.
Very.
They're very similar, yes.
What's the ceiling height of the new, single-story front structure?
11 feet.
Okay.
11, okay.
Yep.
Which actually helps with the addition in the back for extra height. It's very helpful. They look an awful lot like each other.
They different styles. I mean, and I can understand what Jonathan's saying about it being a transition from the tan house to across the street to down that hill. But I think in terms of style, the thing that I'm sad to see go, even though this house is beautiful, the one that you've designed, is that consistent architecture, that arc that repeats down the street. And I would, the house doesn't look like a healthy house, but it is a part of the connectivity of the neighborhood, the connectivity of the architecture. And I see in this new design a departure from that.
I concur with that.
Would we be more receptive if the new design didn't duplicate the existing facade, but had a more strongly influenced by the the existing design?
You mean more of a nod to the neighborhood?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Craftsman, right?
I know a front porch is a big issue for the client, and we're not able to add a front porch onto the front of this house and sort of maintain the required setbacks and consistency of front elevations along the street like we can, if we subtract the front porch out of the front line. So that would be difficult for me to kind of accomplish the goals of my project while starting with that shape. And I hear what you're saying, Blair, about the arc. I know that is a very figural element on the front of this little cottage, but I don't think the house next door has an arch.
Okay.
As I said, the porch on it is different. It has similar that it has a center door and some sort of stoop cover, and it has pairs of windows, but it doesn't have that arch. Now, that may repeat itself further down. I can't say, but the two houses that are there are not identical.
Okay, and I understand that, and one thing that I do admire about the new cottage so much is a front porch, and I think that is critical in these historic neighborhoods for neighbors to socialize and to have an outdoor life that is welcoming. So I'm glad that that they wanted the front porch.
Jonathan, you're correct. The house next door doesn't have an arch, but the next two to the east do.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So does that mean, Jonathan, that a modification could be made to your design to incorporate an arch?
I don't know if I can commit to that. We did sort of pull an arch in to the front door of the new house, sort of, not the same proportions as the one that's on the porch, but, we were trying to continue that kind of element. I don't think I can get what this client would like in this property out of that porch and that shape.
Okay, thanks.
Is the hip roof designed there because it does have an upstairs, or is there, that tends to make it look a lot more, not modern, but newer with that style roof.
I was talking away, but I was on mute. Now, all of the living space on the second floor is in the rear, and it's very visible from the outside where that living space is because it's more two-story. So it's only attic above the front portion.
Okay. So I guess we need to decide if we will approve a demolition for COA 626 or not. And everything has been read, the criteria that we must consider. Does anyone want them reread after seeing the side-by-side, or are you comfortable? You're good? Mm-hmm. Do I have a motion on the floor, one way or the other, for demolition or for non-demolition? Looks like a divided group.
I'll remind you again, it's a non-contributing structure. The survey we all rely on says.
I heard once again.
Reminder, it's a non-contributing structure.
Yes.
On the survey, something that we all rely on.
Yes.
It's non-contributing because of the addition, right? The additions.
And alterations made to the main structure of the
Okay.
house.
Make a motion to approve the demolition.
There's a motion on the floor to approve demolition. Do I have a second? Jack?
I second that motion.
Jack has seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand, I think is how it'd have to be. 1, 2, and those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 3 opposed.
Diane, I guess you counted me as a yes.
Well, since you seconded, I really did.
Yeah, good.
So, and I don't vote unless there's a tie. So,
What was it?
3 to 2 for demolition.
3 to 2 for
Against
Against
demolition.
it.
Against
Okay,
demolition.
yeah.
Do we have a quota to do this?
Yes.
We do, okay.
So I have 2 yeas and 3 nays.
Yes, and I don't vote.
Right. Okay.
So that motion has been denied, Jonathan, and I don't know where we go with this. It might be to where you get with your people and see how it can be modified to be more appealing to the commission.
Okay.
All right. Our next COA is 628. It's by Downtown Construction to build a new building at the Shaw Place.
Sorry, give me a second. Okay, case number 628. Is the applicant here? Yes, okay, thanks, JW. I'm gonna share my screen so that you guys can see the plans. Okay, the applicant requests approval to build a new house on the existing empty lots located at 102 and 104 Shaw Place Drive. The new house features a main lower level with smaller living area upstairs and an attached garage. The house will sit sort of at the rear of the Shaw Place development and will be set back from the street. As I'm sure you can gather by the fact that they're building it on 2 lots, the applicant has purchased both lots in order, I suppose, to have more space around their house. So that means Shaw Place will be, I guess, slightly less dense than planned. The house features board and batten siding. You can see it has several front gables flanking a larger side gable with dormers on both the front and rear elevations. The size and placement of the windows on the front elevation are appropriate within the context of the historic district. The proposed materials, cement siding, brick veneer, asphalt shingle are appropriate and often approved in the city's historic districts. One item about the siding that's slightly different it's specified as a board and batten application, which is similar to the case that was on our consent agenda today. The design guidelines do recommend against that usage in the historic district. However, it's been approved consistently by the commission, and staff doesn't believe that it's going to compete with an actual historic board and batten siding building. Often in a modern application, it's much more widely spaced. I don't think we're in danger of anyone mistaking this as historic siding, which I think was the point of the guidelines. But anyway, you should feel free to discuss that if you'd like, as it is recommended against in the design guidelines. Staff recommends approval of the design for the new building with the requirement that the new windows be true or simulated divided light. There's not a specification for those windows other than material in the window schedule, and that's something that's recommended by the design guidelines rather than having a grill between glass situation. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, or J.W. McCurdy's here on behalf of the applicant.
Does anyone have any questions for Kate or staff? J.W.? Would you like to introduce yourself to the commission?
Good evening, J.W. McCurdy on behalf of the applicant. We're definitely okay with the SDL bars on the windows, that's no problem.
Okay. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask Mr. McCurdy while he's in front of us? Everybody seems fine with the design. Jack?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the existing plans?
I so move.
Jack moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
And Jack, I assume you are affirmative?
I'm waving my hand up here in Maine.
Anyone opposed? The motion stands.
That's my fastest one ever.
I know, man.
Thank you.
Don't get spoiled, J.W.
Yes,
So I'm speaking with the applicant for the next item. We've been going back and forth in some messages. His representative is actually at church at the moment, dealing with something. So if the commission would consider making a motion to make that the last item on the agenda to at least allow for some time to get that person to contact us or to call in, it would be appreciated.
thank you. I'm sure we'll accommodate.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Motion made and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then case number 630 will be heard last, and we'll move to, well, 631 is being, 629. 629, I'm sorry.
So we'll move on to 6:30.
So we're now at 630, which is requested by Chad Long for changes in a home at 1013 South 11th Street.
Hey, I'll be
Sorry
back.
about that, Blair, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta plug my ears, so.
Take some tissue.
Blair, if you want to close the door, go for it, and we can come grab you. Okay.
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 Okay, I'm just pulling up the plans for you guys. The applicant proposes several changes to the building located at 1013 South 11th Street, listed as a contributing structure in the South Lamar Historic District. The Historic Resource Inventory Survey describes the house as a one-story, four-bay frame cape with colonial revival and craftsman influence, built circa 1925. You'll note that since that survey, a decorative Chippendale balustrade was added onto the roof of the front porch and the neighboring property. That's just an interesting, it wasn't there at the time of the survey. The applicant proposes several changes to the existing structure, so I'll just take you guys through them. They were broken down in the report separately. They request to relocate the front door and window and add columns to the front porch and relocate some existing columns. This proposal indicates that the existing front door, which is currently off to the side, would be centered. Some existing paired windows would be removed to accommodate that change. Some columns would be moved to flank the revised front entry, and new paired windows would be installed to the left of the front entry. This proposal is in conflict with the recommendations of the design guidelines, and off-center entry is common in craftsman-style houses, which, although that's not the prevailing influence in this structure, it is the original placement of the door. Centering the door and altering the window configuration directly conflicts with the Secretary of the Interior standards that are part of the Oxford Design Guidelines to identify, retain, and preserve the form, materials, and detailing that define the character of the historic property. And the door section of the design guidelines recommends retention of original openings. The next proposal to install a new dormer window onto the existing building. The proposal specifies a new centered dormer on the original structure with 3 windows. The proposed dormer is in conflict with the recommendation of the design guidelines that additions should be located to non-character defining elevations. The applicant would like to replace the existing carport, move it forward, and add on above the carport. The proposed addition features a roof that would extend the existing side gable form. The proposed addition, and I apologize, you guys, there was a typo in this part of the report, so I'm going to read it as it should have read. The proposed addition has some challenges in meeting the Oxford Design Guidelines. While the guidelines recognize the need to expand housing for modern bathrooms, kitchens, and additional living spaces, the proposed design could be altered to better differentiate the new addition from the existing house. In the design guidelines, it's recommended that additions are located to non-character defining elevations, and an addition should never mimic or recreate the architecture of the primary structure, and that new additions should be constructed at a scale smaller than the existing structure so as not to overpower the existing building. We're not in the business of redesigning projects for applicants, but I have seen similar proposals where, let's say, the commission were open to a side addition, the new roof line is slightly set below within the ridge of the existing gable, something of that nature, something to differentiate the new portion of the house from the old if an addition is found to be acceptable. So that's why staff ultimately recommended denial of the proposed plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, and also Corey Auger is here on behalf of the applicant.
Can you highlight a few of those points, such as the front door, new and old elevation?
Sure.
Just the front elevation in general?
Yeah, it's a little difficult because I don't know how to get rid of these boxes that are on the plans, but you'll see I've zoomed in on the existing front elevation at the top, and below is the new addition, so you see the new dormer above. Yeah. Sure. Maybe Ben has a way to stop the boxes. Jack, bear with us, we're changing the screen share.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. Great. Top left on the front elevations. There we go. So you can see the existing west elevation above the proposed west elevation. Do you want to zoom out a little so they can see the proposed?
There you go.
With the new addition.
I do have a question. Is the idea of moving the door and consequently the windows and all that, is it just for the cosmetic appearance of the facade of the house, or do they want to do that because of something on the interior that doesn't line up with the door?
I'll let Corey answer that.
Good evening. Let me begin by saying a couple of things about a couple of things before we get into the nuances of swapping a door and a window around and turning this into something that it's not. I think this is my opinion, but I think we put way too much emphasis on what these things say. Back in 2000, 21 years ago, those of us who were here will remember there were a number of houses being torn down, a number of lots being combined, and a number of things happening that caused a visceral change in the way we review older homes in this town. This report among all the districts was done in about 60 days, moratorium on demolition. All this happened. If you read what's written here, and this is what we're using as our guide, and it is 21 years old, and it's not well written, it's certainly not thorough, and in certain cases, like the one you just saw, the difference between an N and a C may or may not have any differentiation, because this house is right next door 100 feet away, and this one's contributing, and this one's not. And it's the same thing. Seems to me the question ought to be, are we putting back something that's superior to what's there? Because what is there, just because it exists, doesn't make it good. So, this is my opinion, but I wanted to open my presentation tonight by going, we give this way too much oxygen. I think architecture matters more than the opinion of someone who cranked out something, and I'm going to begin by telling you what they said about this one. It is a 4-bay. This house is not a 4-bay. This will make it easier. I'm referring to it.
Corey, you're referring to the 3 sets.
They're referring to openings in a wall, not a bay system, which is not the same. It is a frame cape, which means nothing other than I'm assuming they mean Cape Cod frame, with colonial revival and craftsman influence. Now, I don't know what they think craftsman is, but they said the exact same thing about that. It is a veneered bungalow with craftsman influence. Same age, same Sanborn, same everything. So I say all that to get to here. What we're dealing with here is not a craftsman anything. It's not a craftsman design, it's not a craftsman style. There's nothing about that house that is craftsman. And if there's any way I can say this in a clearer way, the craftsman style was born as a reaction to the Industrial Revolution. It went to handmade. Joel and I have done a house on South 8th that was craftsman style for Elizabeth Shiver, which has since been ruined by something a commission did, but they ruined that house. But I digress. To go back to the point at hand.
Can you just wait just a minute? Are you saying that the commission ruined a house? Is that what you're saying?
They did a disservice to a beautiful craftsman piece of architecture.
The commission did, or not
Yes,
the
they
architect?
did. Well, somebody had to approve it. It's in a district.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's on the record.
Yes, and I don't want to speak for Joel, but I think he'll agree. Moving on. What we have here is basically 4 openings in a solid wall. That is not a 4-bay. It is 4 windows in a wall. What we have is a big room on the right, and I'll grab the plan so we can refer to it right. We have a floor plan that has a big room on the right and a little room on the left. And rather than equate that with craftsman, I think what we have is the simple notion of going, we were probably walking to the sitting room, and the other room didn't have the door in it. That's why they had the other So rather than get off course and go, this is turning into some piece of architecture, what we're looking to do is take the existing window and trace it over here where the single window is, create a single door, add a column to create some symmetry. Not symmetry is required, but symmetry in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Not everything is symmetrical. So let's go back for a second and talk about what's original. What's original in this house is not the balustrade, as Kate correctly pointed out. It is not. It is not this. It is not that. It is not those. It is not that. It is not even the porch. The porch is actually an addition, although it's an old addition. It is not an original addition. Now, without dwelling into any of this, I'm going to call it the staff report, which has a whole bunch of information behind it that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about here. But to make sure we're clear about what's going on, and to make sure I'm clear about my position here, that is a corner of the porch where the existing house siding runs all the way from one end to the other before the porch was ever added to. Now, technically, they could have run the siding and then they could have built the porch to it, but under that is some brick and tile that's under the concrete you can see from below. But that is this. What we're looking What we're looking to do is take that double window and put it with a single window, to put the door where the single window is, and add a column to create some symmetry in the elevation. Take the bubble skylights off and put in a dormer. That's it. So those are the things that are happening to the existing structure. The existing structure is what it is, but we're not doing anything radical here. We're not changing the world. This whole idea that somehow you can't take off bubble skylights and put in a shed dormer or any kind of dormer. To me, the competition should be what kind of dormer we're going to put in, not whether it can exist or not. That's our next door neighbor. This is not anything radical. This is very straightforward. I'm really shocked that I'm actually having here to defend the fact of moving a door and a window around, but somehow we got caught up in the off-center entry is common to craftsman-style houses, one of the architectural styles evident in the design of this building. It is not craftsman style. It's not even craftsman evident. It's just not accurate. It is, I want to go back to this bad description. It could be Cape Cod frame or colonial revival as much as it is craftsman, but it is not craftsman. Asymmetry is based on the fact there's a big room on the right and a little room on the left, not some architectural design thing. So that's what I got for you. Happy to answer any questions.
Would you like to talk about the addition?
Yeah, we're gonna add on, we're gonna take the carport and make it bigger so a car can fit in it. We would like to take the same dormer and add it again, although I do understand that if the roof line should change over the carport, that would be a legitimate area of conversation and a legitimate way to have a conversation about what do you think should stand out from the existing structure. That's a conversation I'm happy to have. I agree we should differentiate the two, change height, change roof, change whatever. But the overall goal of this is to adjust the existing facade and do a simple, clean carport with a simple, clean addition. It's a nothing burger. But here we go.
Once we get your work done on something, Corey.
Yeah, well, I've had about enough. Let's go back to that.
Hello?
Hello?
That's our next application.
This is Paxton Tree.
You want to tell them around the previous case?
We are reviewing one case before yours, if you don't mind holding.
Oh, I don't mind at all. Would you like me to just call back or
Just stay on the line.
whatever's easier?
You're welcome to stay on the line.
Okay,
What?
no problem.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just put it on mute.
I think it's simple and tasteful. The right addition could use a little work, I get it. But what we're doing to the general facade of the general banal elevation of a house on South 11th is just nothing. Same weather stripping, still going the same windows, not changing those. Same door.
So, really, honestly, Corey, my beef with this was the addition and not the front elevation.
I'm happy to come back for the addition.
But
or whatever.
I was okay where you were with the modification. In fact, getting rid of the skylights and getting rid of the Chippendale, adding the dormer, you know, and I'm a layman, I'm standing at the curb and I'm looking, not, you know, I'm not trying to cross T's and dot I's, is fine, and I see where you're coming from, but the addition on the right, seems to kill the whole thing to me, and that's my 2 cents worth. It's just too much, you know, we got one dormer, and then all of a sudden we got the other one over there. Anyway, I'm not trying to criticize your design, it doesn't do it for me.
I will not take any of that personally, Joel. I'm not gonna hang my hat on this one.
You may take
But
it as you
I do
see
think
fit.
the addition could probably have a cross gable or something in it to differentiate from the original house. I think that has merit. I'm prepared to discuss and or return with that. But the idea that somehow we can't move the door and add a column and you know, even the dormer window, I mean, really, skylights? Bubble skylights?
I understand your frustration, Corey, but as you can see in my report, my job is to say what the design guidelines say, and they recommend against relocating original entries. So that's why that criticism is there.
Okay, the guidelines are great, it's just the reference to it being craftsman was the part that set me off.
Probably referring to the windows. I agree that that's not the prevalent style.
I mean, this is really straightforward stuff. And again, I mean, really the door relocation and the window relocation, I'm just trying to, if the dormer needed to have a doghouse, which I don't think would be more attractive, but there's nothing up there but a bunk room. This house is 1,400 square feet.
So Kate, for clarification, the information we have is that it is listed as contributing. However, after listening to the very enthusiastic performance we just got here, we are seeing that there are things that have been added to it to alter it so much that I don't see how it could be contributing. Is that a fair statement?
What's been altered besides the balustrade? And the front porch was added, but the original form of the house is there.
Well, I would think that the bubbled skylights,
Oh, those have been added, yeah.
were they there?
And the carport's been added. I mean, the carport, the skylights, the balustrade, the columns, the porch. The things that are original are the window and door locations. That's it. And the floor plan's original. I mean, there's
That's
nothing-
what I was
like, the floor
going
plan's
on.
original. Technically in the front
So
it
you're
is.
trying to alter the original elements.
I'm trying to alter a window and door relationship on the front elevation and add a column.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Diana. It has been altered.
Yeah, it's been altered considerably.
Although the bubble
evidently.
skylights were there in the survey, for better or worse. I'm not trying to retain the bubble skylights. I'm just saying that they could be removed.
Yes, I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm not sure after listening to the presentation that it would be a contributing structure.
But as surveyed, it was contributing. And when it was surveyed, it was as is, nothing's changed since it was surveyed, correct?
Exactly.
So it had the balustrade added, but the front porch was there. the original
Exactly. It was the
location.
same as it was in 2000
So
without the
as
balustrade.
surveyed, they considered this contributing.
That's right.
So.
And we're not bringing out additions, we're not changing roof lines, we're swapping a window and a door and adding a column. I mean, we're not adding to the walls, we're not adding to the square footage, we're not adding to the floor plan, we're simply moving a window and a door and adding a column to create. In fact, the balustrade is actually symmetrical. It's just, the rest of it's not. Nothing. So by just doing these things, I thought what I was doing is creating something that actually looked like it actually belonged like that, as opposed to looking like an addition, an addition, an addition.
I will say that the sketch that I'm looking at now is not as appealing as looking at the structure itself and the way it's pictured. It looks a lot better in person to look at that structure than it does to look at that. By that I mean the top original sketch. It looks warmer in person
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
look at it.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything that they would like to?
Corey, why are you wanting to move the door? Why?
The first floor plan has one bedroom downstairs, and what they're gonna do is make that left room a bedroom. So we're gonna move the door to the living room away from the bed. Let me grab the plan and I'll make this.
Sorry, we switched.
No, it's, I got you.
Kate, this guideline is somewhat discretionary, is it not? Regarding changing
The door comes in right here now.
Yeah,
And so there is a bedroom and a bath, and there's a really small full bath. But what they want to do is move the door here and close this up so that they have a second bedroom. It's upstairs is basically, I mean, that ceiling right there is like 6 feet.
okay.
So that, there's nothing really up here. The door pokes out the back, and there's a shed on the back, and it's just been an add-on. This whole thing's an add-on. I think the room built was originally this size, based on what you can tell.
Yeah.
This was a rear porch or something, or that was a rear porch, they added on to it back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's a thing. But the reason they're doing that is because this room is now sitting, becomes bedroom. There's actual closet going in here, so they have a second bedroom that's not part of the general property.
The door section recommends retention.
Jack can see that.
No, his,
Yeah, but it's an internal thing, not just to change the thing.
Yeah, that was my question 30 minutes ago.
Jack, there's a slight pause only because Jacob is going over some of the guidelines for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any other discussion, or do you have anything to add, Jacob, after?
I don't care about changing the door and the window myself, and I just confirmed with Kate that as with most of our guidelines, except for demolition, there's discretion. I mean, it's recommended that you retain original door openings, and I'm not seeing, and then this Secretary of Interior standards says to identify, retain, and preserve the form, materials, and detailing that define the character of the historic property. I don't think changing that door changes the definition of the character of that property one way or the other. So I don't know how you guys feel, but it seems like the bigger sticking point would be the addition, as Joel had said. So, you know,
Does moving the door make it look so much like the house next door? Doesn't it make it look a lot like the house
Well,
next door?
the proportions are not the same. There's a symmetry there exactly, but the proportions are the same. And the dormer's not the same. And of course, it's asbestos shingle, not siding, and the lighting won't be the same. But yeah, I mean, there's no carport on the side. They don't have a carport. You know, there's differences, but yeah, relatively so.
Kate, why would the Secretary of the Interior make such a clear, take such a clear position on moving existing doors?
that's our guideline, not the Secretary of Interior, regarding the doors specifically, correct?
Yeah, let me call it.
Does anyone else have anything to add while Kate is checking on that?
Corey, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to bring us back an alternate for the addition next month and table the whole thing till next month?
My client's interest is really in getting the work done on the front and not so much on the addition. So I can tell you what his interests are. I don't want to keep going back to you, but I'm happy to do that. If that gets us past where we are now, my concern was, my number one concern coming in, and the reason why I'm so animated, is what I thought is happening to the front of this house, the existing house, was really nothing. And that we were really working on is the addition, the size, the scale, the dormer, the roof. That's, to me, what I was coming to have a conversation about, not moving a door and a window.
So if we divided this into part A for the front of the house and B the addition, and tabled the addition and came to a conclusion one way or the other about the first part, would that be something that you would
That would be my
entertain?
client's goal, and I'm happy to do that. I mean, it's fine. Yeah.
Jack, to answer your question, there's not a Secretary of the Interior standard portion in our door section of our guidelines. The part that I quoted that seems relevant here is that the first part of the door section says, whenever possible, retain and repair original doors and door openings, including frames, lintels, fan lights, side lights, transoms, hardware, and moldings. All these features contribute to the richness of a historic building. Original doors, well, that's about paint. Anyway, that's where that recommendation came from staff.
Oh, thank you.
So would the commission be in favor of dividing this COA into two parts?
Absolutely. I make a motion to divide them into two parts, to approve the door window switch and to, I guess, table the addition until later or until further discussion tonight.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Joel seconds. Everyone, any discussion?
I would like to request that materials are subject to staff approval as they're not specified in this application. So the door, the siding, et cetera, the new windows, or are you relocating? You're relocating the windows. Okay, great.
The shingles, same windows, same door.
Okay.
The change, we're just moving it around.
Cool.
Patching asbestos shingle.
So we'll just confirm that when the plans come in.
You to say, yeah.
You're reusing the asbestos shingles? Am I just not supposed to say that out loud?
No, put that in the public.
You strike that from the record, please.
Are we gonna include the dormer in, part A or part B? Do you need?
You want me to bring the dormer back? If you want to isolate the dormer, you know.
No, I'm just curious because since you're redesigning the carport, if the dormer will change in any way when you do that.
I'm not sure they should be the same. I personally, I don't think they should be the same. But the one that's there, I think it's more appropriate to put like a shed on that really low sloping roof and not put a doghouse on it, because I think the doghouse will be out of proportion. But that's the reason why the shed's over the main house. I just copied it, literally just copied it to shove it to the addition so we could talk about the addition. But I got sidetracked on it.
Kate, would it be possible to put up a picture of the proposed new house and then the house next door that you brought the picture up of? You have that?
I've got it. If they can make it happen, camera-wise.
Yeah, they can zoom out.
And maybe that'll help.
Can I zoom out a little, please?
Zoom out a little.
Where's the garage on that house? Is it in the rear of the house next door?
Yeah, the idea was to get a little, I mean, the house is 1,400 square feet, we're not adding square foot to it. So the idea was to get a little more living area in the bunk room upstairs. And again, that's just basically taking the carport that we have right now, which is so narrow that the door hits the stairs and the columns. We just made the carport a little wider and made a little gap in there between the column and the wall to separate the two, so you could walk up into the side of the house. But the addition on the right was nothing more than a continuation of what was there. That's part was like, just add it on, get it submitted, let's have a conversation and go through there. That was the whole game plan, to get this thing right and then figure out what we're gonna do to the side.
So your motion, Jacob, was to approve the changes made to the front of the house, which would address what Virginia's saying about the dormers, is that correct?
I think the dormers might need to be on part 2, just in case Corey decides anything needs to change.
I'm gonna come back anyway. But really, my client, I wanna make sure his goal is to get the asbestos shingles off the house, move the window and door, fill in the gap, and make a second bedroom.
So Corey, would the columns be moved at a later date when the carport's moved? You see what I'm asking? Like, where does it end, this submission?
Other than the dormer, I think we leave the bubble skylights for the addition. How about that?
What I'm asking is, there are some columns that are gonna be relocated when you redo the carport. So are you gonna be making those porch changes now?
Here's let me suggest this.
Here, talk into this so I can hear you.
I would like to take this which is I'm putting my hand over the addition in its entirety, and take the dormer and the addition and come back and talk to you later.
Got it.
Thanks.
So what is being asked of us to consider and vote on tonight is moving the door, moving the windows, and changing up the columns, is that correct?
For the record.
And that is your motion
Right,
without the dormers?
right. But you're gonna remove those windows, right?
I'm not removing the sky, yeah, the
You're gonna
window
remove-
and the door are gonna swap, and the column is gonna get added. That's basically what we're asking for. The window and the door get moved, and the
Yeah.
column gets added, and that's
column.
it. The rest of it is skylight, dormer, an addition. I'll be back.
I'm just trying to make a motion on what it seems like everyone agrees on, which is the front door and the window. And it's the thing Corey's most fired up about that none of us even give a damn about, it seems like, so I'm trying to get that approved.
Hold on just 1 minute. I haven't said.
Seems like.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I'm not so sure that I agree with that, so.
Okay, well, that's
Well,
what,
there is a motion on
Nor-
the floor, and
Okay.
there
Yeah,
is
nor
a
am I.
second on the floor.
minus the dormer and addition, my motion is to approve the plan of symmetry on this house. Shifting the door over and switching out that window with the door and the column addition.
The three
Do I
things.
have that?
You have that,
I make a motion to approve that.
and we have a second already on that. We've had a lot of discussion, but does anyone want to say anything else? All those in favor of the motion to move the door, change the windows, add the column, say aye.
Aye.
By your hand. Jack, yea or nay?
No. Nay.
Those opposed?
Nay.
All right, 2 opposed and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 for.
Okay, so now we table the remainder of the
So
request
now
until.
I need a motion on the floor to table the skylight and the addition.
Okay, I make a motion to table the skylight and addition portion of the request until a later meeting.
Second.
And there is a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
hang on one
opposed?
second.
Anyone opposed?
Before you go, I think you'd be interested to know that we're finishing up a resurvey of all of the historic districts. And we're also getting our consultant to create a database that includes why properties are listed as non-contributing for the commission to consider.
Survey crew that's like a registered architect, preservation architect.
Yeah, it's a preservation. Yeah, there was a consultant that chosen in coordination with MDAH, who we got a grant for the survey.
Who's a licensed
Yes.
architect who knows about that stuff. She's heard of it. Thank you.
Okay, we need to go back now to COA 629.
Paxton, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Okay, great. We'll do a staff report, and then perhaps the commission will have some questions for you.
Yes.
Blair needs to come
Copy
back.
that.
If you'll wait one moment, we're bringing back a commissioner.
Thanks for catching that.
I'd like to commend the staff on the grace that you showed during that presentation, for the record.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah.
I'll vote for that.
Okay, so for the last case, number 629, we're considering a request for approval to build a screened porch on the side of an existing home located at 605 South 8th Street. It's listed as non-contributing in the survey. As you'll see in the staff report, there are photos provided by the applicant. The project is already under construction. City building official Chris Carter learned that the project was underway without the required approvals and permits, and a stop work order was issued until the project could go before this commission for approval, as well as the planning commission for a side yard setback variance. And so that will be heard at the July meeting of the planning commission in order for that side porch to remain. The existing property, a one-story frame center hall cottage, was built circa 1925. However, as you'll see in the photos, it's been highly altered since construction. The proposal indicates pressure-treated pine with cedar siding and an asphalt architectural shingle roof. The proposal is unique because it's a side addition, kind of like what we were, not similar in style to what we were considering earlier, but we normally consider rear additions more than side additions. According to the additions guidelines and the Oxford Design Guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior Standards, it's preferable to add on to the rear of a property. I included the new additions to historic properties section of the report in your design guidelines. However, this design is more successful in that it does read as subsequent to the main structure, and it's clearly reads as an addition. The applicant might consider using siding and paint to match the existing building rather than the proposed unpainted cedar. That was staff's only recommendation in the report. If the commission does decide that the location of the side porch is appropriate, the staff recommends approval of the design. However, any motion to approve should include the condition that the necessary side yard setback variance is obtained from the planning commission. That's very important because right now it's built into the setback.
Okay, let me add this.
Sure.
And I have said this before. Sometimes I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse, because I wonder why we should waste the commission's time on something that might not happen if it gets a negative denial from the planning board. So I just wonder why we are doing that at this time. And the other thing I wanted to add is have we received anything from any neighbors that feel that this is way too close to a property line or too large? And those are the two things. And the main thing, though, is the cart before the horse.
Yeah, very good questions. And unfortunately, there's not an easy answer. And oftentimes we have to deal with this on a case-by-case basis, because sometimes a use may be driving the design. The use may need to get approved first. The design gets approved second, and sometimes it's the inverse. Sometimes the commission, this commission, may make modifications to a design or work with the applicant and the designer, and modifications may be made, and as a result it can have an impact on the variance that is granted, and oftentimes that is the case. The approval of a variance is typically for the least amount, and so if the design is altered in any way, shape, or form, it's going to require the applicant to have to come back and get a new variance request. So it truly is a case-by-case basis. We look at, we evaluate it. Sometimes it's what meeting is closer. We evaluate this, and we did have a conversation with the applicant's representative about that, and they decided to go forward with the design and see how that would fare before moving forward with the Planning Commission, and a lot of that was because of the timing too. So I don't necessarily know that. I mean, in this instance, I don't know that the design will alter the variance and whether or not it's going to be granted. So that being said, your second question, have we heard from any other neighbors or
anyone in the neighborhood?
We have. I don't think that we have. I have not at this point.
It backs up really, a small backyard, it backs up real close to the house behind it.
And the house beside it actually received a variance to be in close proximity to the property line as well. And I think the commission, off the top of my head, I want to say around 2019, the commission considered.
That would have been to correct something, because that's always been there.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, no. You're right. But I think that there were also
I did the
to
house
make.
In 2001, it was there when I did it then, before I started.
Right.
They extended
Yeah.
our port.
They were making some changes, so the commission and I don't think that there was any modifications to the porch. I think the depth might have gone farther back, so I don't know that it actually protruded into the setback anymore, but nonetheless, the commission took a look at the property next door. Nonetheless, we haven't heard anything at this time. Two.
It was just two.
Just two. Just something
horse and the
I'd like to
neighbors.
point out, and you know, in the instance, you know, this is an after the fact COA. You know, construction has begun. There's a stop work order that's in place. The building official has been out there to take a look at the work. I just want you to know that you'll be looking at the design. I think there's a photo in here that shows the current conditions. Some of that may remain, some of it may have to be removed because of inspections and things like that that may be required. But nonetheless, the applicant would be requesting to construct this design, and so you're going to evaluate on.
And that's another thing that bothered me, is it already is under construction without a variance.
Without a variance, building permit,
Yeah,
or a COA.
anything. So I just wondered why it came here first, other than we were the closest meeting, because, I mean, if he gets denied, what's gonna happen with the partial structure that he has?
It may have to be removed. If he's denied the variance, it may have to be removed, but we'll see. Nonetheless, he does have a right to come before this commission and request
Yeah, I wasn't,
a COA for the appropriateness of
I
this.
mean, I'm not, that wasn't my issue.
And I don't necessarily know that the decision, but this commission's decision will bind the planning commission in any way, shape, or form.
If it's approved.
Correct.
Good point. Very good.
Sorry.
I don't think that was on the record.
Does anyone have anything they want to add?
Just laughing about the relationship that we have with the planning commission on certain occasions.
So for what it's worth, I drove by this afternoon, and I mean, it is what it is. It is close to the line. There is a pretty good separation between the two. I think elevation-wise, and there's a retaining wall there, and you can't see it when you drive by. I had to really stop and look hard. So I really don't have a whole lot of opinion on it, honestly.
Yeah, and there's a fence too that's in.
Yeah, there's
That's right.
a definite line in the sand drawn there.
You actually have to be on street level out of your car to see it.
Well, I didn't do that.
Well, you're higher up in my car. You're higher up.
So anyway, but I could see it, but I mean, you had to be looking for it to even spot it. So at that point in my mind, I was like, whatever, it is not, it's just not that big a deal.
I agree with
My
Joel.
standpoint personally.
If it's fenced in, you can't see it unless, I mean, the neighbors haven't complained, right? So
Correct.
if it's, I agree with Joel.
And I just wanted to apologize about the process. I was unaware there was some confusion about that. I had called out Chris to come, and we were gonna put the structure at another place, but there was a gas line, and I was under the impression that I just made a mistake, and it's my fault. So that's why the construction started before, as far as the building permit or all that. My mom was kind of overseeing the rest of it, but I take responsibility for not going through the process the way that I should have.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this, or do I have a motion on the floor for the approval?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
Okay, any more discussion on the matter? Everyone in favor, raise your hand, please. Jack, are you
Aye.
affirmative? Those opposed?
Yes.
I think everyone voted. The motion passes.
Thank you.
So is that our
That's it. That was our
business?
last
Do we
item.
have anything else to discuss? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane, thank you for chairing.
Okay, thank
I
you very
appreciate the help.
I'm extremely jealous, Jack.
Could you call the rest of the architects and tell us if they're small off and whatnot?
All of you are invited, all of you are invited to come up for a visit.
Hey, we'll come up for the next meeting.
Yes, please.
A lobster boil on Jack is what I heard.
You can count on it.
The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.